It's 2 p.m. Central Time, and that's our scheduled time to start. So even though a lot of people have not come online yet, we're going to go ahead and get started. Now, I was originally going to show a few slides, and I decided against that today. I think that's pretty boring because HGSI is a dynamic program, and I want to show you what happens in real time. Now, as many of you know, I've known a lot of you people for several years, and HGSI was always an end of day program. But it now is an end of day and intraday program, and it really has changed the whole dynamic of the software. It's twice as valuable now as it was before. We in the past we always did end of day analysis only, but now with the addition of a couple of vendors, well, Thinkorswim drives my program, and I have to thank Chris White, who's online for that. He introduced us to that, and then it was incorporated into HGSI by Matt. Matt did the programming on that, and it has just opened up a completely new world of prospecting for us, and also staying on top of the market dynamics. And in addition to Thinkorswim, there are a couple of other data vendors. And let me just bring up my menu if I can locate it in this mess. I wish I had more screen area, but this is what I have to work with, so these charts are kind of scrunched together. Now I'm preaching to the choir here for most of you, but there are some new faces here, so I just want to show you the intraday options. As you can see, I have the Thinkorswim running in the background, and I have this running on a 5-minute update. You can also hit your F5 key, and that will update it immediately. The other two vendors are Alpha Vantage, which I don't use, and IEX Trading, which also provides background quotes in real time. I've never tried it, but we have some customers in Europe who are using it, so evidently it works very well. But with this edition, as I stated before, it really changed the program. So consequently, when I build screens now, I build screens. Let me bring this up here. I have to do double duty because I want different views for end of day and intraday. And these are the quick start views, and these are some basic views, and these are some older views right here. And all of these things are available if you're using HGSI or if you're trying HGSI on the website under the add-ons. So if you're a trial user and you want my files, just go to the help menu and go to the add-ons, and I'll bring this over here. And go down to the bottom, and the instructions are, well, I'll show you here in a second. My files are here for the basic and the quick start. These are the more advanced, or the repository of older files. And then here's the market analysis user groups, which I'm going to talk about a lot today. So you just click on these links, and then you go under preferences. Wherever you download them to, you install them by installing the add-ons. It's a very simple process, and I update these files a lot. So if you're an Insider Club member, you get a daily update, especially during earnings season, because I am tracking the earnings as they come out, and they go into a folder immediately or the following morning, and then I upload them. And then I'm always tweaking things and so on to make them better. Now I want to show you in the designer what my market analysis user groups are. And while I'm doing this, what I think I'll do is I think I'll update all of the indexes in the background. Now, during the day, if you have Thinkorswim running or the other data provider, you can go in and you can build the indexes. And I'm going to tell this to build all the indexes. And what it's going to do, it's going to go through and build all of the reference groups and smart groups and everything else. It isn't like an end of day update on the smart groups. So what it does is it takes this real-time data that is being put out there by Thinkorswim, and it builds the indexes according to the current information. So I'm going to build all the indexes, and this takes normally takes me 2.5 minutes. And it might take a little longer because I'm recording and doing background things. So in the meantime, let's see if I can do this. I'm going to launch polling. I haven't done this, and I want you to answer these questions. Do you currently use HGSI investor software? There's 39 of you on. Okay, so I'll give it another couple seconds. Well, it looks like we have 75% positive and 25% are not users. And let's see if I share the results, what happens here? I guess the same information I had before. I haven't used this polling before. Okay. If you are an HGSI user, do you use the intraday data? Well, let me launch the polling and get it over here. Okay, so it looks like the majority of you who are users are using the intraday function. So that has really added a lot of value to the program. I mean, that's how I would interpret that. Not everybody's voting. I guess I should wait for that progress to be done. Or if it just stops, I'll just end it. I'm just primarily looking at percentages here. Looks like 87% are using the, or 84% now. Come on, the rest of you vote. Okay, I'm going to stop. It looks like everybody who's voted is... Okay, now do you use volume price analysis? Let me bring this back over into the screen. Okay, it looks like about 72% of you do. That's good. Going to have to convert the other 28%. Okay, And did you hold on to your long positions during the recent market correction? This is mainly just for my own information. I want to see how people reacted to it or responded to it. Okay, it looks like about a little over a third of you held on to your positions and about 2/3 got out of your positions. So All right, I'm going to end the polling. All right, that was interesting. I'm uh, really impressed with the number of people that are using the real-time uh, feature of HGSI. Okay, now I'm just kind of ad-libbing this. Like I said, I originally was going to use slides and so on, but I think they really serve no purpose because what we're looking at is, especially since most of you are using the real-time function, there's no need to look at static slides. We're going to look at what the strength of the program. And I'm going to begin with the first folder in the designer. I have these structured as a tree the way I use them. These are I call this Major Markets Plus. I have for years because I don't have all them. We don't have major markets for everything, but we certainly have ETFs. So years ago I decided I would call this a Major Markets Plus because it gives me the major markets plus. I'm sorry about that. Plus I have ETFs which can really round it out for me. And by sorting on what we call the raw combo for you newbies, that drives the indexes to the top of the list. And if you look up here, you can see that there is what we call a combo ranking attached to this view, and it's intraday percentage price change 1 day. So if you look down this column right here, you'll see that these are the intraday percentage price moves. And the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index 30 stocks is up 4.2% for the day, and it's at 95.09% of its daily range. And the change from the last opening price is 4%. So what does all this mean? It means that this is the strongest group today in this particular folder. Now there's other information in here too. A lot of these indexes, if there's a zero, they do not have volume associated with them. If there is a number, it tells you the relative volume compared to approximately the same time yesterday. Over here on this side, we have the accumulation numbers. The accumulation numbers will not be valid for any index that does not have volume because that is a big component of accumulation. But if you look over here, these are the trends based upon the VPA trends that Matt put into the program. Here's long-term, medium-term, and short-term. And you can see that the short-term trends are turning up. Now, what I want to do is I want to go into the Nasdaq Composite and show you the chart that I use at the end of the day, and I'll make this full screen. And I tried to have these structured so they're somewhat logical. So on the quick start charts, this is the Nasdaq internals. It says use with Nasdaq, and this shows you the current price during the day. I do want to point out though that there is no volume associated with this candle over here. That information is delivered during the evening download, and that comes from bar chart. But we do get the candle. Where I can pick up the volume is when I go into ETFs. So you can see that this is a strong move today. We don't have the volume, but this is the volume from yesterday, and these are the internals from yesterday. So if I hit my alternate I key, this will bring up the information. Now this is what you would do at night. You don't use this chart during the day because it's lacking this information. It's just not available, but we're going to get this information elsewhere. But you can see that the last date on here is 10/31, which is last night, and these were the numbers which are associated with the index as of last night. Down here, this is advancing versus declining. This is advancing volume versus declining. This is new highs versus new lows. You can see that they were coming together yesterday, and this is the ARM index, which indicates buying pressure. But this is something you should look at night. In addition to this chart, you should look at this one. This is the new highs versus the new lows. You can see when this Nasdaq was in free fall that the new lows spiked up very high here. And I'm going to zoom clear out on here, and you can see how unusual this spike was, which indicates that we're more than likely getting to an oversold condition. Now I put a crosshair on here, and this goes back to 2016. If I go back further, let's see, what is the date here? This is 1/16 when there was a market sell-off. You can see that I've got all the VPA on here. By the way, if you're looking at a chart like this and you want to get rid of the VPA flags, just edit the indicator and just get rid of those, and then you'll have just the chart itself. But what I'm showing you here is that this is when it gets up in this area, if you look back historically, it is getting to the oversold area on new highs versus new lows. And it didn't go to this extreme right here. And let's make this a weekly chart. I'm just going to hit my alternate W key. What I want to show you is going back to, let's put this in perspective. Here is today. This was 08 during the market meltdown. Look how high the new lows got here. So this is just an indication that we could be getting near an oversold level, but you can always get more oversold on new highs, new lows. You can go to extreme levels. It went to extreme levels here, 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 and here. Where do I find that view? Peers, have you downloaded the add-on recently? You've got the view. If you have, let me show you quickly. Ron Brown, market charts, new highs versus new lows. This is something I look at every day. I look at the Nasdaq every night, and I look at this every night. You can also do it with the NYSE if you go choose the NYSE, but it's not nearly as valuable as the Nasdaq. I also look at Ian's multiple indicator chart. This is a chart that Ian put together. I think I helped him, but I can't remember. I think maybe Dennis helped him too, or Bob Meager, but this is what Ian liked to look at. Now let's just take a look at this. And this happens to reflect the information from today. Remember, this candle is updating, and you can see up here that the Bongo Daily, this is an indicator created by a group of 5 HGSI users, turned green. So we're seeing some buying pressure coming in here. Accumulation is still D, as is the Force Index 13-day. This histogram right here, these bars are representative of the Force 13. So when this bar pops above this zero line right here, that will turn green up here. Now, these are Bollinger indicators. Ian was really big into Bollinger indicators, and I'm not going to explain them because I don't know if I could really explain them, do them justice. That's something that Ian did. But anyway, these are things that I look at. So obviously, when we get moves like this, you're going to see these indicators starting to turn green. Now, let me get out of here, and I want to go to I'm going to go to one of my stock analysis charts here, number 1, down in the number 2 folder. What this does is it puts this in perspective for me. I've standardized on these moving averages, the 200, which is the red, The brown is the, well, here you can, if you look over here at the left-hand side, you can see the relationship of the price. And this is as of a few minutes ago when I updated the relationship of the price to these moving averages. But I usually just look over here and I can see that this Nasdaq is still oversold and it still hasn't crossed above the 200-day exponential moving average. So is it safe to go in there and buy? Well, that's up to you. That's for, it depends on your risk, how much risk you want to take. But for the early people that go in early, and I'm going to show you some techniques here to get you into some of these groups early. Yes, I mean, you want to go in there and buy. Does it mean the rally's going to last and go straight back up and it's going to form a V bottom? That's something that we don't know yet. The odds of it forming a V bottom are generally pretty slim. As long as I've been doing this, I have seen a few V bottoms, but generally it doesn't happen. That's not to say that it won't happen. But right now we've got a pretty good start on a V bottom. Okay, let's go through some of these views. Now remember, these are updating right now, every 5 minutes. I'm just letting this run in the background. So I want to see if you can see a common theme here along with me. I'm still in the major markets plus. Let's drop down to major markets ETFs. And I'm just going to slip down in my, let's get out of the end of day here and go down to the intraday. Now I'm in intraday. I'm going to go to the scorecard ETFs intraday. What do you see here? Sorted on the raw combo. We see a different view, but the market vectors, semiconductors, are at the top of this view too. I'll open this up all the way so we can see it, and you can see that the percentage price change is 4.79%. This group is trading at the top of its range, or near the top of its range at 95.14%. Now, there are some, remember I call this major market ETFs. When I put this together, these are the ETFs that I selected. There may be some other ones that should be in here or some that shouldn't be. If you have any suggestions, any of you, just let me know. But I think this is a pretty good cross-section. So look what's number 2, the China large cap ETFs. If you look over here, you'll see that these trends are all down on this ETF and the distribution level is E. I'm going to minimize this and I'm going to bring this chart up. I have these charts linked together. If you don't know how to do that, go under Tools and select Link Multiple Chart Windows, and Warehouse Selection follows Charts. So whenever I click on one of these charts over here in the warehouse, it's going to update both the daily and the weekly charts. So China is coming on. Now look down here. This is a weekly chart. This is the daily chart. What are we getting today? We are getting a pocket pivot. One thing about these charts, these indicators during the day will generate signals. So we're getting an effort to rise and we're getting a pocket pivot. We're also getting, let me make this larger so it's easier to see. We're also getting the 3 going above the 6. How do I know that? Because I'm looking down here at this histogram and it went from below the 0 line to above it on a pretty good spike. Also the volume point of control, it actually turned green yesterday on the 10-10, which means that the bulls were gaining control of this index. Now, to put this in perspective, here's the 200 that's clear up here. Here's the 100, here's the 50, and here's the 18. So this is still in a very strong downtrend. But the early entrants are getting in here Here was an inside day right here. This one showed a stopping volume, no signal on this day, but this was an inside day, which means that there is some sort of agreement. And then it gapped up here, and it gapped up here again. Now, I wouldn't know this if I weren't looking at these scorecard or the scorecard view of the intraday ETFs. Look at what's number 3. This is the biotech IBB. Now, I know on the Skype room for our Insider Club, Piers was talking about this today, how the biotechs are starting to move. And let's just look at this chart right here. I'm going to incorporate VPA into most of this as I go along. You can see that this circle here, there were 3 VPA flags on here. Now, let me bring this back into, I want to display this up in the upper corner here. See how this comes back when I select that? Now I have the information. It tells me that the trends are all still down, which is pretty obvious. But when I click on this candle here, it tells me that there was a transfer of ownership, which essentially to me means that there is not an agreement on where this index should go. We had a big down day, effort to fall, but you can see the tails on this candle, which means that there's a disagreement about what's going to happen going forward. There was also stopping volume. If you look up here, stopping volume, which is indicated by this green circle, and then the other VPA flag here is strength returning after a strong downtrend. So these VPA flags right here essentially, well, didn't quite call the bottom. The next day it held in here. Here was a shakeout. On this day it gapped open, and you can see that it traded down. If anybody put stops in down here, more than likely they were taken out, and then here's a white candle above the wick, and then the IBB started taking off again. Notice this down here. On this candle, after the candles the following day, the volume point of control turned green, which means that the volume associated with this ETF, the bulls were starting to take control. Now, if you look at the histograms here, though, they were still, these are associated with the moving averages, the 3 and the 6, and the 6 and the 18. That information is right over here. I call this a micro trend and a short-term trend. So, as of today, this is going into a short-term trend because the 3 crossed above the 6. Okay? It's kind of hard to see, but if you do it on your own screen, you'll be able to make this out. It's easier to look down here at the histogram to see when this went into effect, or when it's signaled, I should say. I also like to look at the weekly chart. This shows you how choppy this ETF can be. So take nothing for granted that this is. Don't take it for granted that this is going to go straight up, because this the biotechs are, as you know, extremely volatile. And just bring up a weekly chart and of anything, and that'll show you how volatile they are. But what we have here is we're coming off 2 oversold levels. These gray bars represent oversold. Oversold here, tried to rally, came back down, and it held its ground here, and now we're getting a move up. One more thing I want to show you is you can drop down here to chart number 4. I'm in my end of day charts. It's confusing. I made sets of charts for both end of day and intraday, but they have different information. So if you look over here, now this is kind of interesting. even though we are getting a very long candle here on the biotechs, the intraday volume is actually running below normal based upon the 90-day simple moving average. And if you look over here, you'll see that moving average. And with the enthusiasm shown by the candle, it's not being confirmed by volume. So be careful of this. Don't rush into that. Now let's go back and look at the market vectors on. We get a totally different picture here on the semis today, don't we? Because this volume is running almost 60% above the average volume. And if I make this chart a large chart here, you can see that this volume bar is running well above the moving average. And this little magenta tip here on the bar is indicating where, based upon the current run rate, at 3 o'clock, the volume should end up about there. So we're getting a very strong move in the semis. Semis, I should say, not so much on the biotech. We're getting a big percentage price move, but we are not getting the associated volume. A quick look at the China, getting volume confirmation on the China. And let's go down one more and then I'll move on. Okay, now here is home construction, which has been basing. Look at this ETF, how it's been basing. And you can see that it held support here, and it's moving up. Volume's not quite as strong. Let me read this question. Yeah, let me look at the... Yeah, it looks like a washout here. I'm just saying, Peter, that we're not seeing the massive volume like we're seeing in the semiconductors in this IBB. Yeah, it looks like a washout, but I'm looking at the daily today to see how much enthusiasm there is on this. I think the semiconductors are a better bet at this point. Maybe not after today, but they certainly have been. Okay, now let's go down to the next one. These are the Spyder Etf Sectors, and this is what we have. We have the XBI, which is another biotech. I'm just going down my list, by the way. Then we have the China again, but this is a different China. This is the GXC, this is the S&P, and then here is the XSD. So we're seeing a common theme here about the semiconductors, no question about it. Let's run through these very quickly and see how the volume is doing on these. Now you can see once again on the XBI that the volume's running slightly ahead of normal, but it's not massive volume. Let's look at that China ETF. It's running slightly above normal. This is gaps up, obviously. Here's the semiconductors. This is running 50% above normal with this ETF also. We had some great VPA flags here on the daily chart. Now here is the weekly chart. You can see the effort to fall, but that was last week. This is this week. It's totally wiped out that engulfing, well, it wasn't an engulfing pattern, but it was an effort to fall. And look at this. Here's your stopping volume. Here is that circle again, which means transfer of ownership. There was some support coming in here. And then here's a confirmation of this stopping volume. Here's an effort to rise. Here is a confirmation of that effort to rise. And it has taken off and made a very nice move over, what, a 3-day period. I'm just going to do this alternate A. I'm going to go to the low here. You're never going to buy the low, and you're never going to sell the high. But from that point right there, the low to the current price, 13.4% over 3 periods. That is a massive move in a very short period of time. Okay, I'll close that. Now let's go down the list. some more. Okay, now this is where, especially at night, I really do a lot of analysis. I'm just going to skip over the broad market indices for right now and go to the Spyder sectors just to show you what's going on there. The only one that's down today is the utilities sector. Here's a world view of ETFs. I'm just going to quickly run through these. You can see that South Africa is up 6.69% today. Mexico's up 4.76%. And here's the FXI again. The only thing that's down in here are the Japanese or Japan iShares. But you can see that there's just a lot of information which is available intraday that you can use to get a feel for what's going on in the market. Things that you may never see in any other software program. Now, these are the most popular ETFs. How do you tell that? Look at the volume. Now, here's the 90-day moving average volume on these ETFs. I mean, we're talking millions of shares here traded every day. So if you want to stick to high liquidity ETFs, you should be looking in here because you can get in and out with a very narrow bid-ask spread, and there's always a market on either side of it, either up or down. So here's that FXI. This keeps coming up. You can see that they're piling into this with volume running nearly 100% above the normal 90-day moving average volume. Okay, this is one that I put in a long time ago. I called it iShares Etf Rotation. It just shows me where the strength is with a lot of world ETFs plus ETFs based here in the United States. There's a strength and there's very little weakness today. When I go down here, there's 80 ETFs in here, and most everything is up. But you can get a quick read on the market here. Now, if you want to play the ultras, I have the ultras 1s, 2s, 3s, and the Direxion ETFs. And then I have some currency ETFs in here also. So let's just look at the 2Xs. Here's look what's on top. It's a China ProShares. Look what's number 2. It's the Semiconductors. Look what's number 3. It's biotechs. So if you get a read on the market, you want to play some leveraged ETFs, this is where you're going to find them. I put all of these in here for you to make your life easy. Well, I hope make your life easy, but the information is all here, and it's being updated every 5 minutes. If I want a current update, I just hit my F5 key. Okay, now let me go back here to the broad market indices. Remember, I ran this when I started this, but boy, that's been 30 minutes ago already. So we're not going to, I don't want to take the time to run this again, but on the intraday, this is the demand supply view. It's under Ron Brown Quick Starts. It's view number 3, and this is the way it stood about 30 minutes ago, and guess what's on top? The semiconductors are leading the way with 29 advancers and 1 decliner. This is the SOX. As I go down here, you can see the transportation index. This right here, it says 044 broad market indexes. This is a reading of all of these broad market indices. 30 of them were up and 2 of them were down at the time. Now, I doubt if that's changed, but let's see. That isn't what I wanted. Here's what I wanted. I was right here, but you can go down to the next one, and it shows you the industry groups up today. There are 31 of them, and only 2 down, and the 2 that are down are the Dow, utilities, and the energy index. So you can just flip back and forth, not only from this level, but as I go down here, here is the industries index. This is the, or these are, I should say, the HGSI industries, and 153 of them are up today and 21 are down. If I go top down, change to the index groups, then I can quickly flip back and forth to see which of these are up and which of these are up the most based upon the percentage price change one day. That's what the combo ranking is. So you can see the last date is 11/01. Why does it show 11/01? Because I updated this 35 minutes ago now. So all of this information is current. So you can do what I did. You can build all indexes, or you can just build the groups only. And that is an instant update. So let me do that quickly. I'm going to close my warehouse view. I'll bring the designer back up. And if I go into the reference groups and click on industries, select that, and go under my tools menu, and it will only rebuild the indexes in this group rather than building all indexes. So this should go very quickly. And then what I'm going to have here, I'm going to have the industry groups as of right now, or within the last 5 minutes. And you can see how quickly these build, because I'm not taking 2.5 or 3 minutes to rebuild all of them. I'm just rebuilding the industries. Now I can go back in here to this view, and you can see that wood building materials is still on top based upon this view. If I go to the number 3 view, this is advancers divided by decliners, and now you can see the semiconductors are even stronger. There are 57 advancing issues compared to 1 declining issue. I mean, that tells us that there is a tremendous amount of strength in this index today. We have 20 minutes, 18 minutes left: aircraft and parts, containers and packaging, precious metal and mining, and so on. I'm going to take this semiconductor devices index because there are 60 securities. I usually just look at the broader indexes with these views, but I'm going to use this one as an example. And I'm going to go in here, and I realize I'm moving around very quickly, but I'm trying to get a lot in here during this hour. Now, you go up to the Ron Brown Quick Start End of Day Charts, you open up folder number 3, and you can analyze these indexes. Now this is accumulation distribution. I'm using a 2-year chart. You can see, looking back here, and let me go a little further, that this spike on the E distribution on both of these levels got way beyond anything else over the past 2 years, indicating a pretty strong oversold condition. Now I'm going to drop down to the next chart. The top 3 are accumulation charts. This one just shows the flow of accumulation. Here, this is E. You can't really see the A's, but you can see that it's moving out of the E's and the D's because the E's dropped quickly and it moved into the C's, starting to move into the B's. So that is accumulation. We still are on D distribution, but it went from E, so it improved. And this next one, this is a Chaikin indicator, which is a part of the formula. You can see that it's improving. This is slow moving because it's a 21-day indicator. But these lines right up here, when this green goes through this blue line, this is going to go from E distribution to C, which is neutral. But you can see how hard this index, how hard and fast this index has fallen. Now with the buyers coming in, this is improving. Let's move on. Here's the AD line. Now here is the information for today. This will give you the most recent update. 57 advancers, 1 decliners for a percent of 98.28% advancing over declining. And here's the advancing minus the declining volume. Advancing volume is way ahead of declining volume, 127.37 to 1. So massive up volume on this index today, and you can see that it's heading for the moving average. So downtrend line here, I'm not going to draw it, but you can see that it is moving up. Now this one right here, this actually works a lot better with a broader index, and I'll go in and do that before this session's over. But this is a percent of the 59 or 60 stocks below their 20-day. Back here on this date, if I hit my alternate I key, it brings this box up. Right here at the low, you can see that there were no stocks, none of them were above their 20-day moving average. And if I do it today, you can see that 74% of them are above their 20-day moving average. So this has moved very, very quickly. Okay, let's go down here. Well, none of them are above their 200-day because you can see that right here. Well, I'm sorry. No, I misspoke there. If I click on this, I was looking at the moving average. That's not true. There's 50% of them. 50% of them are, and I may have misspoken here too. Let me go back. No, I did not misspeak. 0 or above the 20-day. But back here on that same day, and let me put my crosshair on, you can see above the 200-day moving average, only 10.34% of them were. Now, if I move over to today, and this is current information, now 27.59% are above the 200-day moving average. So that indicates that strength has really come in to this index. You can analyze any HGSI index, any index which is created by HGSI, with these charts. Let's go to the next one. This is something I came up with years ago when Ian and I were together. If certain characteristics are met, it's going to generate a buy signal. Here was nearly a buy, a yellow warning. We had a 5-to-1 up day on this day, which corresponds to this, but the force 13 was still red, but the force 13 turned positive today, so it is generating a buy signal. All of these conditions were met. The Vpa turned green clear back here on this day, but the other indicators didn't come in, and it did generate a yellow there, but and that's actually an early buy point. It doesn't always work out this well, but in this instance it certainly did, and this is a confirming buy point. Now, don't blame me if the semis turn around and tank tomorrow. I'm just showing you what these indicators are telling me right now. I didn't want to do that. I want to leave this full. Okay, this is the AD line and the percent above the 50. Just another chart. This one right here gives you all the internals and a cumulative high-low line. This is a rarity when this thing goes below its moving average, so that shows you how severe this sell-off was. And it is starting to turn back up. But all of this information up here is information that is generated by HGSI anytime intraday when you update the indexes. So before I leave this, I want to run through quickly one of the major indexes. So I'm going to get out, let me go back to where I usually work from. I'm usually working from the broad market indices, and I am looking at a much broader industry to get a feel for the markets. What I generally do is look at all stocks with at least a 50% institutional sponsorship, and you can see that today this is running at 4-to-1, 4 advancers for every decliner. And this is a much broader look, and these are the institutions have at least a 50% sponsorship in these stocks that make up the index. So I'm going to just look at this very quickly, not spend a lot of time on it. But you can see that this spiked up badly also. E's are coming down. The A's have not turned up at all, but you can see that the bars are moving up. The D's and E's are starting to turn down, and the A's and B's are coming up. Accumulation is a relatively slow-moving indicator. I still like to look at them because it gives me a feel for the movement. You can see the E's are dropping dramatically here. The D's have not started coming down yet, but we're getting some movement into the C and the B. Not much movement into the A accumulation yet. Same thing here. Let's move on down here to this one. You can see that the advanced decline line, which was dropping very rapidly, has turned up as you would expect because the market's been very strong. In fact, the NQ is now up 100 points today. So this market is going to finish very strong, and Apple reports after the bell. So here's the information about the advancers versus decliners over here. Let's run through these quickly. Percentage above the 20, 30, 50, and 100. What I want to point out here, and I pointed this out on the board, you can see that the institutions, this is clear back here at the beginning of September. If you look at this line right here, you can see that this crossed below the moving average. So stocks were deteriorating clear back here in September, both on the percent above the 20 and above the 30 and above the 50, and ultimately the 200 went below its moving average too. But you can see here, let me see if I can draw an arrow here, that there was distribution going on back here from the institutions. How do I know that's? Because I'm using this all institutional index. Now, what are we seeing? We're starting to see accumulation on all these. So the bargain hunters are coming in, the institutions are coming in, because these are stocks which are held by institutions. This is a very handy chart. Now, did I get a potential buy-sell signal here? Here was a yellow one 2 days ago. Right at the market bottom, there was a VPA flag there at the same time. This is strength coming in after a downtrend. And today, we're not getting the advancing versus declining volume signal, but we're not at the end of the day yet either. So that could change. But you can see that these are trend colors that went from trend down to this green bar over here. If you look, it tells you that the short-term trend is up. You can see that visually. You don't need the math, but it's just nice to see how the market transforms, and you can see that the indicators are turning green. So all of this is being done with intraday information, whereas before we were really limited to end of day. And you can see how much more powerful this is with the intraday, the capability of generating the indexes intraday and then looking at this information. So here's the AD line, the percent above and below the 50, and then this is just the information from today. This is starting to turn up too. Here's a pocket pivot that was generated yesterday. So I look at these charts every night, and sometimes intraday also, just like I did today, but I certainly go through them every night, and I look at several of these views. Let's quickly look at the Nasdaq 100 because okay, what chart? Let's just look at this one right here, and you can see how quickly the Nasdaq 100 back here. Here's the Nasdaq 100 back on this is October 3rd. You can see that the percentage of stocks above their 20, 30, 50, and 100, they were all below their moving averages. So distribution was really setting in back here. I really like this chart because it shows me these things, the percentages of stocks above their moving averages. Let's see if it has generated potential buy and sell. It did on this day right here. Remember, this is the Nasdaq 100 index. Here's a yellow bar, and these other indicators turn green, everything but the Force 13, which is going to lag because it's based on a 13-day period. But here we're getting, this is not a 5 to 1 day. These are light green bars. If these are dark green bars, I'd be getting a dark green signal like this, which indicates a stronger day. But we're getting more confirmation that this is a day to buy, or a confirmation day, I should say, for the Nasdaq 100. Okay, I'm not going to have time to go through a bunch of these, but I think you get the idea. Here's the advancing versus declining issues. And that's a very powerful information to have intraday. Now let's go down here. I want to do something else. I'm going to run a little bit over an hour. I always do, but I don't think you'll mind, will you? Okay, I'm going to sort on raw combo, and I'm going to go down here and go to this industries index again. I'm going to change to this group. Once again, semiconductors are on top. I showed you that, here, let me make this full so I can get my quick pick here. You can see which groups are up based upon a percentage basis, which groups are down. Now here's a nice little feature. Remember this, wood building materials and rubber and plastic, these are the biggest percentage gainers today, 8.9% and 8.5%. Let's say you want to look at stocks in these groups. This is something that I put in for one of my webinars. I'm just going to go up to all securities, and now I'm going to go down here to the stocks in industries up and down. If I click on stocks up in groups today, and if I'm sorted on raw combo, look how nicely this lines up. It's got the wood building materials on top, followed by the rubber and plastic, and the sporting goods and so on, casinos, gambling. Remember, this is the percentage price change. This is not advancers versus decliners. But you can see which stocks are up in groups today and which stocks are down in groups today. So if the groups are up, these are the stocks that are also up in these groups. So this is really powerful. You can do a secondary sort here. I'm just going to type in intra, and I'm going to do intraday range, and then this lines these up according to their intraday range. So I'm going to go down here to lodging, and you can see that In Suites Hospitality Trust, with a couple of minutes left in the market day, or a minute left in the market day, is trading at 100% of its range. It's only a $1.55 stock. Let's find something else. Here's the Marriott Class A. This stock is trading at 100% of its daily range today. And or 97.97, I'm sorry. But this is how you find the strongest stocks going in to the end of the market day. Now, I look at this anytime during the day. I know these groups are up and I know these stocks are up, but I just want to see which stocks are holding up the best or are leading the group. And this is how you find out. Let me click on that Las Vegas Sands, and you can see what happened here. Here is the range on the daily chart. It's near the top of its range. Let me go to number 4, which has this information in it. It's at 96.67%, an effort to rise. But if you look at the weekly chart, you may not be so excited to get into this stock, but the early buyers are getting in. You can see this has had a precipitous drop. And it's got also on the weekly, though, it's got stopping volume and a confirmation that, or this signal means that strength is coming in after a long downtrend. You can see how useful a lot of these VPA flags are. They don't always work, but you get a nice combination along with a daily chart up here, which is showing an effort to rise with heavy volume. This is an opportunity to possibly get in at the bottom. Generally, it's not something I like to do, but there are people that like to do it, and you have the insight to do this using this program. Now, I want to show you one more thing before I wrap this up. I don't know where the time goes. It always gets away from me. But look at all the biotechs, specialty pharma. These are all up to date. This is what I wanted. I wanted the semiconductor stocks, and I'm just going to go down to the industry group level. I'm going to isolate these. And what I want to do is show you, using some of my views, where the signals were generated. So I'm going to use my intraday views. You can see that right here. I'm going to go to stock prospecting, and I'm going to go to the volume point of control scans. The impulse reaction scans are generally for stocks that are trending and are pulling back. You're looking for a relatively safe entry, but when the market's turning around like this, there are a couple things you can do. But I clicked on the wrong one. I want the VPOC. This is a bullish 10-period volume point of control, which indicates when the bulls or the bears are in control of the stock based upon a 10-day period. It's a short-term indicator. This has the fan up. Look how many stocks in the semiconductors had a fan. In other words, where the fan is lined up. There are very few of them. I need to go to that chart. With a fan, it means that the 200s, the 100s above the 200, the 50s above the 100, and the 18s above the 50. There are only 3 stocks that had a fan formation. But if I go down to the number 2 view, this is a 3-day window without the fan. This lets all of these semiconductor stocks appear. Now this column right here, first of all, this is when it's green, this is the percent, or the stocks that are above their 10-day volume point of control. And you can see the days since they crossed over. 0 means that they crossed over yesterday. So I'm going to make this a large chart, and I'm going to put the crosshair on, and if you look down here at the bottom, you'll see that this volume point of control turned green. What happened on this stock today? A pocket pivot appeared and an effort to rise. Look at this, there was stopping volume. This indicates strength coming into the stock after a long downtrend, and this is a confirmation, and this stock moved up nicely today. If I put number 4 on here, I can see that it was up 13.6%. 0.01% today on very, very heavy volume. Look at this, 375% of normal volume. Now, if I were doing this end of day, I wouldn't know this until the end of day. And if I were prospecting during the day, this information would be available to me. Okay, let's look at another one. These are stocks that I'm not really familiar with. Now I have to go back up to my number 1 chart or my number 2 chart, which also contains the industry group, and it only has 3 moving averages. You can see the industry group is moving up. That's the dotted line. Here's your pocket pivot on this one today. Here's the volume point of control yesterday. Here is a test for supply the prior day, and this just happened to follow through today. Now I'm just going to drop down to the next one. Notice that these are in the same order that they are in the warehouse view. Let me show you that. So it's Macon, Xperi, Nova, Advanced Micro Devices, and so on. So if I bring this chart up, if I transfer from the warehouse to the charting module, these will stay in order. So here's number 2. Here's Advanced Micro Devices. You can see that the volume point of control turned positive on it yesterday. And there were a couple of VPA flags, 3 VPA flags in a row coming off an oversold condition. Here's another one. But you can see that this is a good scan to find oversold stocks. I'm not going to go through all of them. I just want to point out that when a market is turning, this is a good scan to look at. There are several other things you could do. You could look at the VPA scans themselves. There were no tests for supply. This is a confirmation of strength. Up bar closing near the high. Here's effort to rise. These are all based upon yesterday's signals. Here's stopping volume. Here's transfer of ownership. Now Matt just put some 2-day scans in here, or the ability to look back 2 days. I'm just starting to work on them. I really haven't done much with them. But you can see that here's an effort up 2 consecutive days of effort to rise scans, and then there was a follow-through again today. I don't know how much I'm going to do with these, but you can see strong move here, strong move here, stronger move there, and then a follow-through today. And there were some other VPA signals down here and some pocket pivots. You can scan this way. I think the volume point of control is a better way to do it because you're going to get a wider selection, and you can just sort on this to see which ones were firing on the day. So this fired last night. It was 0. All of these fired last night. These fired the day before, the ones, and these fired a day before that. So let's look at Chemet, for example. Make this, and you can see that this one, the volume point of control, when the volume started coming into this stock, it fired on this day. Same day, the 3 went above the 6, so it went into a micro trend, and it has just kept going. I believe this was based upon earnings. Okay. Anyway, I can only cover so much in an hour, but you can see how powerful that this program is, especially when you combine end of day and let's see if Apple's reported yet. When you combine both the end of day and the intraday. I don't think, no, it's not out yet because these numbers are the same as the closing price. So we can't take a look at Apple. Any questions? Thanks, Peter. I knew I throw a lot at you in these webinars, but I just really want you to get a feel for some of the power of the program. Okay, well, I'm going to end it, and if there are no questions, that's great. Good, Carrie. I learn something every time I do this too. Yeah, you're welcome. I'll try to get this posted. I don't know if I'll get it up today or not. It will go out to the Insider Club. You'll be able to download it. I'll also put it up on YouTube for general distribution so people can go through this. But thanks for participating, and we'll be doing more of these things, more of these webinars in the future, and really zoning in on how to get the most out of the program. Thanks a lot for listening.